the league is in a panic about the Thunder owning the Clippers picks these next couple of years. This year outright, next year via swap.
Back in May of 2025, I made this video. NBA parity is at an all-time high, but is it good for everyone? In that video, I talked about how there's been 7 different champions in 7 consecutive years. And in April of 2023, with the implementation of the second apron luxury tax, it created a severe penalty for teams trying to keep their core together. On paper, this seemed like a good idea. The NBA was moving towards an era of parity, giving every team a better shot at winning the title by diluting the talent across many teams.
Crosses over on Beverly. Float game for the win! Tyrese!
In reality, however, through a combination of horrible mismanagement and bad luck from other teams, this era of basketball might have accidentally created the team that is in a far, far better position than any other team in the history of the sport. How did this happen, and how did it get to this point? Let's take a detailed look at everything that led to this.
You really just saw how deep this team is. Did tonight's win once again emphasize that with some key guys out?
Yeah. And the Dallas Mavericks, for the second time in 3 years, are going to the Western Conference Finals.
Not too long ago, in 2024, the Dallas Mavericks defeated the Thunder in the playoffs, and then lost to the Celtics in the finals. At this point in time, the general perception across the league was the parity was at an all-time high. I mean, you had so many young, rising teams led by different superstars, with different skill sets, and a strong supporting cast of role players. It seemed inevitable the Mavericks and Thunder would compete at the top of the West for years to come. And the Celtics, of course, seemed like they were in a dominant position in the East. But then, tragedy struck. A year later, the Celtics lost Tatum to a devastating torn Achilles. Then, the front office had a tough decision to make. They realized with his injury, the Celtics would be out of contention for a while, and with the looming penalty of the second apron tax, they could not keep their roster intact. So they were forced to trade away Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis in deals that were basically salary dumps so they can avoid the additional tax. The Pacers, another strong contender who quickly rose up the ranks, also saw their superstar suffer a torn Achilles. And the Mavs made possibly the worst trade of this generation. Might be the worst in history, which I'm sure you've heard enough about. Basically, this horrendous decision by Nico Harrison, combined with the unfortunate injury timing of other contenders, it created a power vacuum in the league. A vacuum that can only be filled by the Thunder, who inevitably became the most dominant team in the sport. However, that's only one part of the equation. This was the infamous Paul George trade that happened back in 2019. We all know this turned out to be a fantastic deal for OKC, but the aftermath of this single trade is even more favorable for OKC than you might think. So at the time this trade happened, OKC blew up their roster. They got rid of George along with Westbrook as well. While the best player they got in return was unequivocally Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, in hindsight, nobody predicted he'd become one of the best players in the league. It wasn't him that made this trade so lopsided, but the massive haul of draft picks in return. At the time, these picks were situational, but it looks like most of these situational picks they have will convey to OKC. Some of these older picks turned into core pieces of the franchise like Jalen Williams. But it's all of their 2026 and 2027 first-rounders that turned this trade from being amazing to impossible for any other team to catch up to them. In 2026, they own 3 first-round picks. Their own, Utah, and the Clippers' unprotected first-round pick. With how bad they've been, this is potentially a very, very good pick. In 2027, they also have 3 first-round picks. The Spurs and Nuggets picks are protected, but they're not fully protected, and OKC will most likely get both of them. Most importantly, the 3rd pick they have that year is the ever-so-valuable pick swap with the Clippers. Since the Clippers franchise is on the verge of collapse and their team is falling down the standings, it's likely that by 2027, they'll be so bad that they might be a bottom 5 team in the league and get a very, very high pick. Imagine being on pace to win over 70 games and establishing a dynasty and still be awarded with a top 5 pick in the draft. It's unprecedented. Well, maybe not totally unprecedented. It kinda happened before, back in 1986.
I've been a Celtics fan all my life. I like the Celtics. Number 1!
The Boston Celtics won 67 games and the championship, then immediately got awarded with the 2nd pick of the '86 draft, Len Bias. With his death, however, it meant the Celtics didn't exactly benefit from this pick. Regardless, these two teams are not comparable. By 1986, all of the Celtics' major guys were in their late 20s or early 30s, basically in the middle of their primes or slowly regressing, whereas the Oklahoma City Thunder have yet to hit their primes. Oh, and they also have 4 more first-round picks from 2028 until 2030. Essentially, most of the blame goes to the rest of the league, and especially the Clippers, for being so incompetent that they built this monster of a team. The whole purpose of the second apron luxury tax is to prevent teams from stacking superstars. Adam Silver's vision was to create a balanced NBA landscape with even the smallest market teams able to compete for the title on a more leveled playing field. In the 2025-26 season, the Thunder have only the 17th highest payroll in the league. But a few years down the road, with their great role players demanding more money, it would be impossible for them to keep them. Since Clay Bennett is not keen on spending too much money, he most likely won't want to be punished by the second apron tax. In theory, a few years down the road, their incredible role players would no longer be there. They would join a different team, possibly even their competitors, and it would make OKC weaker. That was what Adam Silver envisioned would happen when Dynasty struggled to keep their guys together. In reality though, OKC is built different, literally. They started the season going 18-1 without their second best player, which indicates this team is so deep it doesn't matter who they lose. Their dynamic offense and plethora of two-way studs seamlessly created a system where anyone could step up and flourish. Then you add on all of the aforementioned picks in their arsenal, it creates a situation that's insurmountable for any other team to compete with. And who deserves the most credit? The man himself, Sam Presti. Speaking of Sam, if you can name one difference between OKC and any other team in basketball, it's the guy in charge of all their decisions. Unlike most other GMs, Presti is cautious. He's meticulous. Just because a player plays well, he's not just gonna throw them a maximum extension. We've seen teams get burned by doing this. Think of Michael Porter Jr. and even Jamal Murray in Denver. They were both signed to massive deals simply by the fact that they were drafted by the team and they were improving at a good pace. If Presti was the GM of the Nuggets though, I'm not sure he would have done that. Remember back in the day, he was even cautious of paying James Harden. And recently, he traded away Josh Giddey, who became a bona fide star in Chicago, in exchange for Alex Caruso, a role player, but he fits perfectly within their team's identity. Speaking of that, there's always doubters when it comes to establishing a dynasty in this league. Heck, we thought OKC 15 years ago would be the next great dynasty in sports, with their young Big Three reaching the finals at 22 to 23 years old. But that team was different. It was built on the backs of sheer talent alone, with a coach that really didn't try to implement anything, except give the ball to the stars and let them work. You remember this meme, right? Scott Brooks' secret plays. By over-relying on just a few players, this style of play carries a lot of risk because they didn't really even have a system. And when a guy gets hurt, it could ruin an entire season.
For the first time in his career, Kevin Durant, cornerstone of that Thunder franchise, will miss an extended period of time due to injury.
The new OKC doesn't have that problem, as evident by Jalen Williams missing much of the year, and the team literally registered the highest net rating in history without him. Keep in mind, the dude's All-NBA third team and All-Defensive second team. If any other player was missing a guy of his caliber, they'd obviously be much worse. But you couldn't even tell he was missing. Mark Daigneault was doubted as a young head coach, but he established a strong sense of identity on the roster, powered by ball handlers that relentlessly attack and put pressure on the defense, no matter who's on the court. Combined with Sam Presti's drafting instincts, the two of them collaborated to create arguably the greatest coach-GM duo we've seen since the Golden State Warriors dynasty. They already won 68 games and the championship, and have somehow gotten even better since then. For them, they could only get better, because they were amongst the youngest champions ever, with the hunger to keep growing, to keep winning. So which teams can actually, realistically catch up to them? It seemed like 1 or 2 years ago, the opinion was Boston would dominate the East, while the West would be a bloodbath. But with the snap of a finger, the Celtics were forced to go an alternate route, and briefly go on hiatus from their dominance. They were already waist deep into their timeline, with their players already in their primes, and already getting paid an exorbitant amount of money. It made it very difficult to keep their team intact. In fact, the Celtics were supposed to be the OKC of the East, with how well-rounded their team was and the great decisions of management. The unfortunate timing with Tatum's injury ruined their momentum, so I think that's the only way for someone to catch up to OKC. Other teams need to hope they too run into some bad luck. But if you want a real answer, the Lakers have made a strong push towards becoming contenders. In particular, Austin Reeves' emergence from a solid sidekick to putting up literally superstar quality numbers. The Rockets got better, the Nuggets actually made some good trades for once, and the Spurs have finally hit their stride. There's more competition than ever in the Western Conference, yet the Thunder still stand out as the team to beat. However, as great as they've been, the Thunder, like all teams, have weaknesses. They are deep, but it's SGA who makes their entire game plan work. Everyone points to him having great teammates to support him, but they aren't nearly as good without Shea drawing all the attention away from the defense. His mere existence on the court, even when he's doing nothing, has such a powerful gravitational pull due to the threat of his scoring ability. We throw out the term 3-level scorer a lot, but Shea truly is the perfect example of that. Not only is he a 3-level scorer, but he has elite efficiency from every part of the court. Even his 3-point shot, which he's not known for, he's shooting a career high now. You can argue he's not as complete of a superstar as others in terms of, passing, rebounding, whatever, but he doesn't need to do that because the team is built in a way his deficiencies are covered. He's also a scorer first, and the entire team is built to help him with that. But in the moments where his teammates do get shut down, that's the biggest way to exploit this team. We've seen it in the playoffs before. Though not the same team as right now, perhaps there will be a time when their role players become too good to shut down. And when that time comes, the Thunder will be impossible to stop. Anyway, that's all folks. Let me know your thoughts on the Oklahoma City Thunder. And do you think any team in the league can catch up to them? Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time.